Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the podcast. This episode, I sit down with the Annihilator Broadhead company and talk with Brandon, who does a great job of answering what I thought were some tough questions about their Broadhead's design, and really, I think, provided a lot of good information where I actually left the conversation feeling better about what they have as a Broadhead company, what they have as a Broadhead design, and definitely didn't give them an easy interview, in my opinion. And provided a lot of great information, and leaves me to where I want to shoot and test the broadhead. So this was probably going to be the most talked about broadhead for fixed blades in 2019, in my opinion. As far as a broadhead design, there's a lot of different things about this head, a lot of buzz centered around the Bladeless kind of marketing effort they did, and how that, how the market kind of reacted. And I just really had a great time learning and listening to Brandon on this episode. So a lot of questions surrounding this broadhead, a lot of actual kind of negativity for folks that are looking at the head and haven't even shot it yet. I want to give it a fair shake and shoot it, and I feel a lot better after talking to Brandon about what they have going on here. So hopefully you guys enjoy this episode. I know I did. It's a little bit shorter than our usual, but it's straight to the point with a lot of good information, and I think you guys are going to enjoy it. So again, this is Annihilator Broadheads, and hope you guys enjoy. See you in the end. This is a broadhead that has been in my eyes since it honestly came out, and you guys had a bunch of teaser pics, and it was like,
right.
It was like, what in the heck am I looking at here? Bladeless broadheads, and right. and so it got a lot of buzz going real quick.
Right.
My Instagram inbox and Facebook started getting a little. What's this deal? What's going on here? Have you tested these yet? I'm like, dude, they're not even out yet.
Right.
No, I haven't tested them. So when I saw you guys had a booth over here, I kind of just nabbed you, and here we are. So,
yeah.
So give me a quick introduction, man, and then we'll kind of go into what you got.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I'm Brandon Brody, co-owner of Annihilator Broadheads. My partner is Micah Brown, and we just launched Annihilator Broadheads about a month ago, and it's actually been about a 2.5-year project that we've been working on and keeping hush-hush for a long time. And
oh, wow.
Just done a lot of testing and wanted to launch right. And so I'm glad the teasers worked.
Yes. Yes.
They were teasers, and they were marketing, and that's okay. It helps.
When you can create a buzz in the industry, when you have a lot of competition, a lot of new startups. And I was talking to somebody about the other day. I was talking to Luke from Tooth of the Arrow about just like, why is there so many different new broadheads coming out every year? And he's like, well, there's a few reasons, but it was just really interesting. Like that seems to be the number one most competitive market right now is broadheads. Like there's so many hitting the market, and it seems like a lot of them are taking technology that's already been out there, or just kind of tweaking something that's already out. Your guys I haven't really seen anything like this one.
Right.
I was just trying to dissect it when I first finally got a full picture of what it was. And then the Bladeless thing is what generated the most questions.
Sure.
So let's get into this thing, man. So I'm holding this thing right here, right now, and we already talked about this, but it looks like it's a cast broadhead.
Yep.
Tell me, basically, walk me through the design of this thing real quick.
Sure. Yeah, it's completely a new shape than anything else on the market in terms of because of its back-weighted lobes. Most broadheads on the market, you'll see, they create them to be more aerodynamic. So they're looking for the least amount of drag possible on the broadhead. We've learned that you want the least amount of surface area or drag on your entire projectile of the arrow, not just a broadhead. And so we set out to make a new shape that actually creates an air pocket as it flies and as it hits animals as well. And there's some science behind it. You can get that. We're about to post some information on our website to jump into the technical specs of it and why it does what it does. But ultimately, this back lobe, it literally transfers energy to the animal like no other broadhead because of its shape, because we're intentionally creating more drag. And so as it hits an animal, it creates a pressure wave and also a low pressure wave on the back end of it like no other broadhead out there. We came across this design because we really didn't. The reason, kind of going back to the bladeless broadhead, we really don't think you need blades. You want a cutting surface. You want an edge, a cutting edge. But at the end of the day, we think this design does more than just something with slits or a blade that sticks up vertical from a spherical, the general broadhead shape, right?
Yeah.
And so technically speaking, you could argue whether it's a bladeless broadhead or not. It has sharpened edges, but we took the approach of it doesn't have. It's not a detachable blade. And so the teasers worked. We got some interest. we raised our hands and say, yep, that might have been some marketing.
Yeah.
But there isn't a gimmick in terms of the shape. And
right.
I think that's what we're excited to share with people is they're going to see that the effectiveness of this shape is very different and creates a different expectation for what you should have for your broadheads. And so, so we can get into all that, but and really what actually is taking place. But to answer your question, that was kind of the shape. We wanted something new. We wanted something fresh, something that looked very different, something that functionally did something different.
Yeah.
So,
well, the number one thing I got was like bladeless ? And it was like, I don't know, man. I haven't seen it. Obviously, it has some sort of cutting edge on there.
Right.
Or else it would be a fill point. So,
right.
Something's going on here. But so I'm glad you clarified that because that was one of the most questioned things I got about all the marketing and stuff going into this thing. And I don't mind it. It generated a lot of buzz and it worked. So
sure.
I mean, you can't blame a guy for working that angle. I don't mind that thing at all. And for the cupping and creating less drag for everything behind it, thinking about that and applying it to other areas that you find, that totally makes sense when you're looking at NASCAR and you're drafting behind a car.
Yep.
That totally makes sense when you're getting better gas mileage following a semi too close.
That's right.
It just makes sense.
That's why people went with nano diameters, right? The smallest diameter.
Exactly.
Arrows.
And I was going to say the guys that maybe would have a problem with that theory or that science, well, Mike, you're probably shooting a slim tech arrow or something like that, or micro arrow, and
right.
So you believe somewhat in it, right? So I can totally get on board with kind of creating that little turbulence or that break in the air and creating a draft pocket for the rest of your arrow to go through. So have you guys had any, leading into that, if you guys are breaking up the air and this is kind of a stretch here, but have you had any problems with getting vanes to with drag on the vanes or any tuning with the arrows with the vanes creating that turbulence?
No, not at all. In fact, with this broadhead, with everybody that has shot it to date, we've told them intentionally, don't try to tune this broadhead to your fletchings. Just screw it on, shoot it, and give us the feedback.
Okay.
And just last week, I had a buddy of mine who kind of was anticipating, he was waiting to see that in real life. And so I had him pick a random broadhead out of the batch, took my fill point off, screwed it off, hadn't even shot that day.
Mm-hmm.
We moved the target out to 100 yards. I shot field points and I shot broadheads, 4 shots total, and I had a 2-inch group at 100 yards.
Really?
Yeah. Now, will I do that all the time? No, I'm not claiming I'm that good of a shot. I'm probably got really lucky on that.
Yeah.
But he was there. He saw it. It was awesome. And he's like, okay.
Okay.
So we're going to be producing more videos about that and really spending some time to help people understand and proving that, if you will.
Yeah.
But no, you do not need to tune this broadhead to your fletchings at all.
I'm glad to hear that. And so another question I have is it seems like every manufacturer wants to say this is the quietest, most easiest, feels like a fill point and everything like that. That's all standard stuff.
Yeah.
What about how quiet is it? Do those cups provide any more sound with the drag that it's producing?
Right. So there's no cutouts.
Okay.
Right. No fasteners.
Which I'm a fan of. I don't like vented.
Right.
It just creates that little extra whistle.
There is no sound that we have found produced from these broadheads. We actually were messing around and doing some video shoots at night into. I won't give the secret away. So we'll have some videos coming out.
Okay.
But my videographer, I told him he's not an archery hunter, and so I said you need to be back, far away. Like don't be close to this thing. And
yeah.
And I said, the closer you get, you're at your peril, man. And I said, you do what you want, but we were only shooting like 20 yards.
Oh.
And but the way he couldn't see where I was, he was kind of behind a tree. And so, but he was within 5 yards behind a tree of what I was shooting at. And I shot a bunch of broadheads for this test. And anyways, I told him okay, this is the Annihilator. And he had no idea I'd shot until it showed up into the actual target.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. So at 20 yards, he didn't even hear the bow string go off.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. So I do have acquired a bow, but
yeah.
So.
Well, with the cupping, I really want to get into there because that's really the part that deserves a second look. I mean, there's not anything else out there that I can think of with cupping
very
and a broadhead in there. It is very unique, like you said, in that aspect. Did you guys go with a smaller – because what's the cutting surface and cutting diameter on that thing?
Right. So cut diameter on the 100 grain is 0.9. We've played with it a little bit. You might see on our website 0.85. Right. We've actually been able to increase that and still get the weight. And so it's right in there, about 0.9.
Is that legal to use in Oregon?
It's legal to use in all 50 states.
All 50 states?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. We've gotten a lot of pushback on that, but we did check. Between all 50 states, it's
okay,
legal.
That's good to know because there's some like bone was just really close to not being legal.
Right.
So I was like, okay. But so, and how much cutting surface did you have? Because you were talking to me about that earlier, and that was kind of a head turner for me. Looking at it, you wouldn't think there would be that much on there. Right.
Well, if you turn it around and look from the back, you can obviously tell there's a lot more mass on this, and that's what a lot of people give us flack for. Well, geez, you got so much surface area on that thing. Doesn't it produce drag, and how does it fly? And we can get into that conversation in a minute. But this has one of the smaller cut diameters of any broadhead out there, but it actually has the largest cutting surface area of any broadhead out there. In fact, it's a 0.18 cutting surface area for our 100 grain. Our 125 is even bigger. But the next closest thing to a cutting surface area would be a two-blade broadhead that has a 3-inch cut diameter.
Okay.
And that would be 0.12.
Okay.
And so just to give an analogy of that, you can go to our website, and also on the back of our packaging, there's a little diagram that you can kind of see what we're talking about there. But it makes a lot more sense when you see like we come to a show like this and we bring a car trunk so that we can show people this is the diameter, or this is the hole that is actually being made. This would be the smallest hole possible for this broadhead to give somebody a point of reference. And that's just because of the cutting surface area.
Okay. That so some of the cutting surface is on the back side of I guess you'd say the broadhead.
Well, it's within the edges and the scoop. So you're talking about the rear kind of attack. Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay. So so Kudu kind of has that same, as for guys that want to picture it, Kudu kind of has that same sharp back end as well. Yeah.
Yep.
So with the broadhead, did you guys find any hiccups with the cupping preventing penetration? Because when I first saw the broadhead, I'm like, I wonder if they went with the smaller cutting diameter because the cupping was preventing some drag going through the animal. Is there any? That's just my assumption, and that's why I was wanting to ask you that. That was my number one question personally.
This broadhead absolutely creates drag, but it does so intentionally in the right places. And so you can look at the scoops. I mean, those are completely creating drag.
Yes,
right?
Yes.
However, when you attach that broadhead to an arrow, it's popping a hole, and so that arrow is going to travel through. That's all surface area of a projectile going through an animal. That arrow is going to travel through with significantly reduced friction or drag as it goes through the animal compared to any other broadhead out there, because it's popping that hole. So
I've got a arrow right here, and that makes sense to me, and I'm just liking this from past. If you see that footer on there, that presents a bigger hole for the rest of the arrow to go through, and I get better penetration. And it's not fair. I know animals aren't plywood, but when I would shoot plywood, this would open up a bigger hole for the rest of it to go through, and then that would be other arrows or other setups with penetration. So I can see what you're saying there, and that totally makes sense. So, yeah, so that's not why you went with the smaller cutting diameter?
Not necessarily, no. We went with the smaller cutting diameter because it's what we could – we knew we wanted this shape. We knew we wanted the back lobes. That was clear. But they're standards. You got to meet 100 grains. You got to meet at 125. So it was a really big challenge to get this to weight and be what this is and what you hold, and be legal cut diameter at the same time.
Right.
So to be exact, a 2.5-year process.
Yeah. Well, a lot of these guys coming out here, from what I've gathered from some other buddies, they're doing some quick tests, and they slap a design together in 6
Right.
months. They have a broadhead, and I'm going to market. And it's
Right.
like, all right. So I say this all the time. I appreciate hard work, and I appreciate attention to detail.
Right.
And 2 years sounds like a lot of hard work and a lot of attention to detail.
Yeah.
Not some
Lot of
multiple
tests.
prototypes.
Oh, yeah.
Multiple tests. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
This is granted, this is just a simple footer. This is not the first footer they came out with. I had the
Right.
first ones, and then don't we already have another one.
Right.
So
Right.
they went through a couple things, and that's just a simple product.
Yeah.
And they refined and made that one better. But so another question I had is in the industry, you don't see cast used as much. Some of the more popular steels right now are the S30V and then other ones like that. And then some guys are really going cheaper on them. But with cast, that does cause a little bit of a debate on the integrity of the broadhead with the guys that I've seen in forums and talks and stuff. So walk me through the metal process and selection.
Sure. Let's address cast first, and we can talk about the type of metal.
Totally.
So cast is extremely repeatable, far more repeatable than just a machined process over and over again. Cast has all sorts of issues depending on the shape. And we originally machined these. And the cost was so high because to get to this shape, you're removing 60% of the material. And so, we were like prototyping these for like $50 a shot or $60 a shot.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
And
so we started looking at casting. This is all in the feasibility, right? Can we even go to market? Would somebody even pay for something like that, right? So we talked about casting, learned about that process. Aerospace products are made with casting, so it just depends on the use, the shape, and what you're looking to get out of it. Ultimately, we had that concern for durability because with casting, you can get air pockets, you can, all sorts of issues. And so our casting company, they're American made. We did not outsource to China.
I'm glad you said that.
There are great actual investment casting companies in China, but we looked at that and we said that's not who we want to be.
I'm glad. I'm glad you guys did that.
But anyway, so we went through a process. They guaranteed us with this shape specifically because it's this lobed, back-weighted design that they ran all of this through X-ray machines, and they give us reports of how solid these are, where air pockets are. So what we did through our casting, and you saw this firsthand, our casts are much larger than our final part. And the reason why is because we're cutting out to the most solid portion of that. So that's how we went about our design. We said, how do we make this the most repeatable and solid? And so when they told us your shape is good, and we have a process to validate that.
Okay.
We said, okay, let's try it. And then obviously we tested it. And so you can go on our website and you can see us shooting it straight into concrete to prove that and to say it's strong. You're going to break an arrow far before you're going to break this thing. We also give everybody a lifetime warranty against manufacturing defects. So
if you do have one break and you're like, dude, there's a big old fat air pocket, I'm like, hey, that's pretty god dang rare. Here's a free one.
That's right.
Okay.
It would be impossible because we run them through an X-ray.
Okay. So, hey, that's good information.
But yeah.
So you guys went with the cast, and it's no secret that previous designs with cast have had issues, but with your guys' design and the way you built them, and the extra step you take with the X-ray, shouldn't be a concern.
No, not at all.
Or isn't a concern.
Not at all. Not for me, and I'm the one flipping the bill. So
yeah. Well, when I first saw that it was cast, I was like, okay. There it is, right there. There's the thing, and I'm like, I need to, So, and I think a lot of guys were like that too. You know, they see everybody wants to just immediately go negative when they see a product, a new product, especially when it's something that they haven't used or seen yet. But taking a look at it, and I have seen the video. I think I have seen the videos where you guys were shooting them through the trunk and stuff, and and they did hold up pretty well.
Yeah.
How is the edge retention on those things compared to other heads on the market that you've tested? Have you tested the edge retention at all?
Sure. We don't want to call out any other companies, but we've definitely tested, and we've the edge retention is phenomenal. I can't tell you it's the best.
Right.
I can tell you will be 100% satisfied with this edge retention.
Okay.
I can also tell you that if you want to resharpen it, you can also put it flat on a stone and resharpen it yourself and hone it. It is a 52 Rockwell. We found that is the sweet spot for 4140 for this material. So
You said something about S30V steel. Like this is what's that in the relationship to this?
right. So a lot of guys know SV30 just from Solid
Yep.
and other. It was actually created by Chris Reeve Knives back in the day. I heard about it because I'm from Boise. And anyways, this is actually so SV30 is the stainless version of 4140.
Okay.
Yeah.
And is that a tool?
It's a tool steel.
Tool steel, okay.
Yeah.
I'm not a metal guy, but I'm talking to all these broadhead guys, and some of it's
Yeah.
starting to stick. I'm like, okay, I recognize that. So
if you like SV30, then you're really going to like 4140 because that's what it was created from.
okay, see, I learned something new right there. I
Yeah.
didn't know that. And I don't claim to be a metal guy or anything like that. I just listen to guys that know way more than me, and I'm like, okay, so this is a good steel. And from all my research and all the testing that I've done, I like 50 to 60, somewhere in between there. Seems to be, and you guys are 52.
Yeah.
I'm talking Rockwell, obviously. For listeners, but that seems to be a really good. And then also depending on design, your hardness would want to depend on that as well. So
If we went, just to speak to that, if we went any harder, we wouldn't be able to. The average hunter would not be able to resharpen those in the field.
I have broadheads that will not be sharpened in
Right.
my tackle box because it's like I'm not going to spend an hour doing this.
That's
and I could take a work sharp and probably get it. You know?
Right.
So, so with yours, one thing I liked because having done so many different broadheads and stuff, sharpening isn't really a priority when I buy a broadhead. That's one of my least priorities. But damn, is it nice when you don't have to have a special sharpener, or you can just put it on a flat, grid, diamond grit, and then just go. And then do it again and then again. So
you don't have to
can
be an
do
expert.
That. Yeah, it's pretty freaking simple. You just run it across a flat diamond grit or sharpener, and you're done.
Yeah.
So to me, that actually kind of is appealing because I just want to throw half the broadheads in my box away at you nowadays.
Yeah.
So is there anything else that you guys have done testing that surprised you guys throughout this process, or anything that you guys have learned about the head through developing it?
Yeah, I mean, most of the stuff we've learned actually wasn't functional. It was actually more through the simulations that we've run, third-party engineering companies that we've hired to help put some science behind what it does.
Yeah.
Just because that's not my background.
Right.
And so I thought I'd
hire an expert.
Yeah, hire an expert. Yeah, and who was non-biased.
Yeah, exactly.
And so one of the things that I think surprised me the most is we knew that this created a pressure wave, and we knew that it hit like a hammer. We knew that it created an air pocket. What we didn't realize is it creates some of our analysis. We ran an analysis with a 280 foot per second arrow, which is pretty common.
What grain?
Well, the grain was based off of my arrow, which is 456. However,
457.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Nice. However, for this analysis, it actually wouldn't matter because it's about trying to evaluate pressure, and so it's almost like it's a standstill, right? It's what happens at a moment in time, and so based on that speed, and so the speed was 280, and so at point of impact in an animal, it was a 5-inch pressure wave forward, and a 7.79 pressure wave on the back, which is actually a low pressure. So we have a diagram. I'd walk you through it.
Yeah.
And that low pressure was the thing that surprised me on the magnitude of that. It's unlike any other broadhead. And we ran other broadheads through this simulation, and we were significantly larger in that low pressure than anything out there, and which made sense because what that low pressure is doing is it's kind of like a vacuum. It's taking that atmospheric pressure and literally pulling it through that viscous material, that liquid, the blood, as that arrow travels through the animal, it literally sucks its insides to the outside. And we saw that in the animals that we were shooting. You can go to our website. You can see pigs and other things that we've shot that have these huge air bubbles and stuff coming out. And most guys look at that and they just automatically go, oh, you shot lungs. No. Actually, we're pulling the air through that, which brings the blood. And so what we're seeing is a lot more trace on the ground faster. And that's why that matters ultimately, because you can shoot an animal and kill it very effectively with any broadhead with the right shot placement.
Yeah.
But the difficult part is to find something that you can shoot repeatable well, but also put the blood on the ground with enough penetration to get those pass-throughs
Right.
that we want. And so that's ultimately what you have with the Annihilator is you have enough penetration to get what you're looking for. Yeah, we created more drag, and we have outstanding penetration. Are we going to be the most penetrating broadhead in the world? No, because we're not the most aerodynamic broadhead in the world, because we didn't design something to shoot the farthest.
Right.
We designed something to shoot. It's kind of that perfect middle ground, or as close to that as possible, without the trade-off of losing lethality.
Mm-hmm.
I want something to die as fast as possible, efficiently, and I want blood on the ground, and I can do that by creating gaping wound channels.
Okay.
It's kind of like the analogy of if you were to like cut your hand with a razor, right? You can close that, put some super glue on it, and you're ready to rock, right?
Right.
But if I'm, slip and hit my hand with a drill bit and punch a hole through it, you're going to the hospital.
Right.
You're going to have some
That
problems.
makes sense.
That's ultimately what you're going to have with the Annihilator.
So with the air pressure thing, that's not in my wheelhouse. That's stuff I'm going to have to start researching now. Would that basically, I picture somebody like doing a cannonball in the water, and then they kind of create that in the middle of the wave, it shoots back out.
Right.
Is that what you're referring to? Kind of like that kind of idea of
Absolutely.
of it shooting back out?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Because when you were talking about that, I'm like trying to relate that to somehow I could describe for the audience that would make sense, and it does make sense.
Well, let me be clear. Maybe not so much shooting back out the opposite direction.
Mm-hmm.
It's more about pulling atmospheric pressure in.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and I don't claim to be an
Right,
engineer.
right.
We hired people to tell us more about this, right? And so, but
Do you
that's
know
exactly
what a
what's
regular
happening.
three-blade broadhead, traditional style three-blade broadhead would do atmospherically or whatever you're talking about?
Yeah. So we ran that through our simulations, and a traditional broadhead would be about 30% of what we're seeing with the Annihilator.
Okay. Well, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So outside of that, are you guys even on the market yet? Have you sold anything yet?
Yeah. So we're taking pre-orders right now.
Okay.
Through the website here at the show.
Okay.
And we're looking to ship our first production run within about 2 weeks.
That would be really cool. Have you
Yeah.
guys got quite a bit of pre-orders yet?
We've got a decent amount. I
Yeah.
wouldn't say we've killed it or anything. But
Yeah,
I don't
broke the
blame
internet.
Yeah, we haven't broken the internet, but we were hoping to launch actually for this show, and we decided last minute, because it is a 4140, we wanted to put some rust preventative on them. So
Okay.
we're going to do some black oxidization, and that's extending our launch a little bit. So I just wanted to ship a better product.
Well, no, and rust in Oregon, especially on some of the more expensive heads, has been an issue in the past, and
Right.
it does deter people from buying them again.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, and it doesn't help with edge retention or
No.
durability or
Yeah.
anything. So
the oxidization isn't going to solve that. You still need oil on these heads, but it'll be less.
Yeah.
It'll reduce that when you get them.
Are you guys going to sell what you need to oil or to protect it from rusting?
No, we're not. I don't want to be in a oil business.
Yeah.
You can go get mineral oil for a
Mineral
couple
oil is
bucks.
what you would
yeah,
need.
but I would definitely recommend mineral oil.
Just from like the grocery store or something?
Yeah, any type of and if you have gun oil is great. There's nothing wrong with
Okay.
gun oil. Like Rem oil.
Yeah.
Yeah, nothing wrong with Rem oil.
Cool.
Yeah, it's probably even easier because you can spray it on, or you can get the wipes and then just wipe them off.
Yeah, my favorite's that CRC oil, and that stuff's dirty. It's
Yeah.
good. I mean, it'll clean. I brought guns back to life with that shit.
Yeah.
And it's a good oil, and it really does protect well and stuff. So that's good to know. You don't have to go down to the store and buy some special stuff.
Nope.
Why don't we wrap this thing up and let me know when you can get them, where you can get them, and how much they're going to be.
Sure. You can get them online. We're also creating a dealer network online at AnnihilatorBroadheads.com.
So you're looking for dealers.
We are looking for dealers. I'd
Okay.
like to get some distribution. I can't create that myself.
I can let you talk to a couple of my buddies. And see if we can't help.
Yeah, and there's ultimately we want shops pushing these, and so
Yeah.
we've onboarded quite a few at this point. not where we want them to be, but so we're working on that. But you can find them in your local archery shop, hopefully coming soon. And if not, then go tell your archery dealer to give me a ring. So we'll get them set up. So.
Well, I do got one more question for you. Is I've shot broadheads in the past, which I would not ever shoot again into my like a toxic into my Reinhardt, because toxics are cheap and Reinhardts are expensive.
Yeah.
And they pull 3 holes out.
Right.
And, will this damage a Reinhardt if you shoot it?
You're definitely going to put a hole in it, but you will be able to pull it out because it does have this rear cut.
Okay, cool. Yeah, because I'm like, man, they call them like the meatworm tubes or something.
Yeah.
It's like I'm pulling 3 of those chunks out of my Reinhardt every time.
Right.
But yeah, not to get on a soapbox there, but so all right, man. Well, Brandon, thanks for coming on to the show, man.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
and well, I like to get products locally, so I don't have to go buy them over the internet. So I'll have to introduce you to some of my buddies and see if we can't get these in the store locally.
Cool.
So,
sounds good, man.
All right, well, take care, man. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you.
That's this episode of the podcast. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Hopefully I did a good enough job interviewing for this one. I really wanted to do a good job and ask the good questions that I've seen online and that I had myself personally. So outside of that, I think he provided a lot of good information, some science behind it, and sounds like they just didn't do a rush job and bring out a head to market like a lot of guys are doing nowadays. They spent some time testing and third-party testing, and I appreciate, like I said, a lot. I appreciate attention to detail, and I appreciate effort, and it sounds like these guys have a lot of attention to detail and a lot of effort going into this head, and I think it's going to be a good head, but I still want to test it out before I come to my conclusion and give it a fair shake. So outside of that, guys, if you haven't, please be sure to subscribe to the newsletter. The newsletter is the onpointpodcast.com. You can sign up there, and you'll get exclusive deals. Not a bunch of spam, but there'll be 1 or 2 companies that have exclusive deals for the listeners on there. And then you also have updates to what the podcast has going on as well. So that is at onpointpodcast.com. Click the little blue sign up tab. It should pop up automatically, but if it doesn't, it's on the right side of the page. And get yourself signed up. We're going to have a giveaway here coming up for the guys that actually do sign up for that newsletter, and we're going to try and really grow that thing. So anyways, hopefully you guys enjoy this podcast. I appreciate everybody listening, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye.